This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
At last, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy. This is the tagline on the cover of each issue of the Marvel Star Wars comics from 1977 and beyond. I am Richard Wolosky, and I want to welcome you back to classic Marvel Star Wars comics. I am here to take you through the story, share memories of reading this series as a kid, and to make sure you younger fans know the importance of the names Jaxxon, Crimson Jack, Hoojibs, and the power of the Forp! Because whether or not anyone sides with me, we're starting to see references from these comics seep into the new canon. And we'll get into that in just a little bit.
Well, hello, comic book fans. I am Sarah Wolosky, and on this show, we take you through each issue of the vintage comic series from the 70s and the 80s. So I will give you my new 21st century perspective on these comics, since this is the very first time I'm reading them.
And I am Watto, the junk dealer, here to talk about the comic books.
Watto, can you put Randy on the line, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. This was the wrong podcast. I keep doing this every time. I'm sorry, you guys. So, no, this is, I am Randy Martinez, Star Wars artist, and I'm here to also share my memories, childhood stories, and give my very peculiar, very, very insightful point of view of an artist as a Star Wars artist, and I'll let you know what I think.
Now, since we last recorded, we have seen the release of a new Star Wars film,
Woohoo!
The Last Jedi. Now, before we get into this issue we're going to cover in this episode, which is number 16, The Hunter, let's go around and talk about what our big takeaway was from The Last Jedi. Randy, you want to start us off?
I loved it. I thought The Last Jedi was awesome. There was really nothing about it that I didn't like. I really like how they expanded the Star Wars universe. They gave us a whole bunch of new Force powers. They gave us a whole lot of new things to think about. And also, I really like the way that the characters are developing in terms of a parallel to mythology and also as a parallel to who we are as people. Because I hear a lot of people arguing about Luke Skywalker and how he was. And, I thought it was perfect how he was because he's been through a lot of stuff. And my way of looking at it is like, if you don't understand how Luke is, you either have been living in a bubble or you have not reached the age of 40 yet.
Yes! That's the thing. Like, yeah, he's grown.
Well, that's exactly my point. Every time I talk about Luke, he has gone through 35 years of mental anguish. That's going to destroy anyone. So you're not going to get the Luke Skywalker we last saw in Return of the Jedi. If you had gone through what he had gone through and having your star student destroy everything you had built up, that's going to really mess with your head and make you go to an island and just wait to die. I can see that.
And just what we see in the movies before enough, he has to deal with after Return of the Jedi. Okay, you've kissed your sister a couple times. You realize that your dad is Darth Vader. Now, I didn't have the best relationship with my dad, but I knew him. And it just was, problems between the two of us. But if I knew my dad had killed all kinds of little kids and has been the terror of the whole galaxy, and that was my dad, and now everybody's looking at me now that he's dead, that's a lot of weight to carry.
Right. And now you have the pressure of starting a new order when you're training yourself. The training you had yourself.
All by yourself.
It was pretty much Ben for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And Yoda for what was probably a couple of months on Dagobah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a whole lot of time under your belt to start a whole new order.
Yeah.
So I understand exactly what Luke was going through. And if we picked up in The Last Jedi, with Luke being the hero he was in Return of the Jedi, I'd be the first one to stand up and say, no, come on. He's gone through way too much. He's got to grow as a character, and he's not growing unless he goes through all this anguish.
I think everybody wanted to be Rocky, because they keep making these Rocky movies, and, Rocky always says the same, life will knock you down, but it's not about how hard you go down. It's how you can keep getting up and moving forward. That's not Luke.
No, it's not. Yeah, I would agree with you, Randy. My take on The Last Jedi is I've seen it 4 times now, and every single time I've liked it more and more, and I've been more emotionally grabbed by this film. So each time I'm like a big sobbing mess at the end, but in a good way. It's like cathartic.
Oh yeah, big time. And we saw the last viewing in 3D, and when that dreadnought suddenly comes out of hyperspace and it's right there in your face, my first reaction was, hey, that's the ship from classic Marvel Star Wars comics.
Now, I gotta say, I'm not totally on your side yet, Richard, on that, because I have to stay on this side just to make the show interesting, number one. But number two, I wasn't buying the whole thing because art is just art, and everything that's Imperial looks like a big piece of pizza anyway. So that you can make it a million different ways. But after now, you got to keep in mind we haven't talked since we did the last episode and The Last Jedi came out. When I saw Leia flying through space, I thought of the last issue where Han Solo is out there in space.
That's right.
So there's precedence. People are, she wouldn't be flying. No, there's precedence. It's there and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Richard might be onto something.
Yay!
But for the sake of the show, I'm not on your side.
Well, you know what? We're going to get into it in a little while because we see that this new character in this issue has got shades of Finn.
Yeah, so should we get into it?
All right, let's get into it so we can get to that discussion in just a little bit. Unless, Randy, you had anything else to add? Was there a favorite design concept that you, artistically, that you really, really liked, that really grabbed onto you?
In which? The Last Jedi?
In The Last Jedi.
Praetorian guards were pretty cool looking. I really like their weapons.
Yeah.
There was just so much in the movie that was new, and I really liked that. Yeah, there's just too much. I know people were like saying stuff about the bombers. Oh, there's no gravity in space. Well, nobody ever said that was gravity they were using.
Right.
Number one. But I thought the design of those ships were really cool. It made me think of B-Wings, but they weren't B-Wings, and I liked how they weren't B-52 bombers, but they sure felt like them. And there is a lot of emotional feeling from all these years of seeing all of that World War II dogfighting, footage from B-52 bombers, and you see these resistance bombers coming on. There's just a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Connective memories to that made it just seem really, really cool to me.
Okay, like it's what Star Wars does is it takes things that are real in our reality and just modifies them so that you still have that sense of, oh, these are absolutely real ships.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for me, the design element that I really liked from The Last Jedi was the whole color scheme of Crate is just gorgeous. And I know that's where they got all the poster art from. So kind of reminds me of the lead up to The Last Jedi as well. But just that stark white with that deep blood red and just the way everything just ties in. And then you have the crystal foxes, which are like shards of ice on top of that. So I just really like that whole, just the color scheme in that the 4th act of The Last Jedi.
There was so much beauty to look at.
Yes.
But the one thing that really stuck out to me, speaking of Crate, are the ATM-6s. I love those big ape walkers. I love them so much.
Yes.
And just the way they're about to fire, they'll get into that stance. Kind of like when Kylo Ren is getting into his stance, he'll put his leg out and boom, the saber comes out. Like he's got to ground himself because it's so powerful, his lightsaber blade. And it's the same thing for the ATM-6s. Before they fire their big cannon, they've got to ground themselves before they do fire. or the whole impact might just bowl the whole walker over if he's not prepared. So I really love the new take on the new walkers.
Nice.
All right, now after that, let's move on to this issue we're going to cover here called The Hunter, or as it was called in issue number 15, The Hunter.
Yay! They actually went with the same name this time.
Yeah, I think this might be the first time they actually went with the issue title that they prefaced in the last issue, because as we noticed, they keep changing the titles.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's catch everyone up with where we left off in issue 15, titled Star Duel.
That's right. So, in Star Duel, Crimson Jack was waiting to exact his revenge on Han Solo for leading him to the Drexel system. But Han has to make a deal that will enable a safe getaway for his crew, which includes, of course, our favorites, Luke, Leia, Chewie, and the droids. How will things go down between those two space pirates? Spoiler alert. Not too well for Crimson Jack. And then we got the finale of that arc of Crimson Jack and Han and the gang.
All right, now in this issue, we start a brand new arc as Valance the Hunter destroys the medical station on Telos 4. When he and his crew of mercenaries hear a patient rambling about Han Solo, the boy, and the droids, Valance jumps to conclusions, thinking this must be Luke Skywalker. And thinking there is a big reward for the capture of Luke and Han, Valance follows old favorites Jaxxon and Amaiza to Aduba 3, where we saw in issues 7 through 10. Mm-hmm. How hard will it be to take down a couple of second-rate hunters? Well, Valance is in for a very big surprise. A fun fact about this issue here, this is the first issue of Marvel's Star Wars series where the original cast does not appear other than in a recap sequence. The decision not to feature Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, and the droids, well, this didn't sit well with some readers. A few issues later in the Star Warriors letter column, there was one letter that read, "Let's not have any more of this."
Signed R. Woloski.
That's funny.
I wonder who that could be.
Yeah.
If we are going to see more of this, we will talk about it in 40 years on Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, the podcast.
All right.
Well, for future reference, no reason to say how long ago it was.
Oh.
We can just say pre-Sarah's birth.
Yep, pretty much.
There you go.
These comics are older than me.
Yes,
All right,
they are.
speaking of these comics, though, issue number 16, The Hunter, was released on June 27th, 1978, a full 3 years before I was born. And it was written by Archie Goodwin. Artwork was by Walt Simonson. Terry Austin is out working on X-Men, and now Bob Wiacek has taken his place. The coloring was by Bob Sharen, and the cover art was by Walt Simonson.
Death and destruction are his tools. The Star Warriors are his targets. So, Randy, tell us all about the artwork for this issue.
Well, it's really pretty. Well, I don't want to say standard, but this is a kind of a go-to cover for comic books where you got the floating heads with the character coming straight at you. But what got me really excited about this when I first saw this comic book cover is like, cool, Marvel Comics and Star Wars characters are finally crossing over. The Punisher is going to be in Star Wars. I can't wait to read this. This guy looks kind of like a cross between the Punisher and what's his name? The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Fury.
Nick Fury. Thank you.
Yeah.
And but I love all of the the fire and the smoke in the background. Brilliant colors. The orange and the yellows really make the blue of Valiant, or what's his name?
Valance.
Valance. I keep thinking Prince Valiant.
I
It's a
know.
totally different haircut though. But the blue of his costume with the orange and the yellows behind him really makes him pop forward, and I think that's really good design. And I think it's an exciting one, and it shows you characters that you may or may not see on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, for me, I recall seeing this cover when I was a kid, and I was never a big fan of comics like The Punisher and the original S.H.I.E.L.D., and I thought this character looked too much like those characters.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of the war-torn comics So this one here, it didn't grab me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had just come off of a character like Governor Quarg, and I wasn't crazy about him just because he was too G.I. Joe. And then we're on to a new arc, and we see this character, which looks like the Punisher. And so as a 9-year-old at this point, it didn't grab me.
Okay.
And I thought it was weird that we saw all these floating bobbleheads.
Yeah, I can understand that because when I saw this cover, I wasn't drawn in at all because it just seems very artistically odd to me to have those floating heads. And I don't think we've seen that on a Star Wars cover before. Have we? Like the floating heads?
No, this is the first.
I think all the other covers have been pretty well managed with whole bodies, even if they are hard to draw, like the droids. So, and then we have our central character here, who is not someone we've seen in the films. And I believe this is the first time that has happened in a Star Wars Marvel comic as well. One thing that did stand out to me on the cover, though, was Jaxxon.
Oh.
And I was excited to see that Jaxxon might be back.
That's probably why I bought the issue. Well,
Yeah.
I would have had said Star Wars on it, so I would have bought it.
Right.
But seeing Jaxxon back really excited me.
Definitely.
All right, now, once again, we put this out on Facebook in our group, and we had quite a few comments.
Woohoo.
So, Randy, any of these comments stick out to you?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of people thinking the same way that I was, so that means they're correct. In that, that the Punisher, all the references to the Punisher, and there's, so many of them. So I think all of you guys, way to go, good thinking.
Okay, yeah, and same for me. Lisa Dullard is very correct when she says the floating heads are creeping me out.
Now, Garrett Sessions has an extremely good point and says, "Where's Princess Leia?"
Oh.
And then
So is that a hashtag? Hashtag where's Leia?
Oh, you know what? Yes, it is. It is for this episode. And then continues on with the Skull Giant Gun Armor says one thing. Yes, this is a Marvel comic, and yes, this is a clone of the Punisher.
Oh.
I think every other comment said the Punisher.
Although I do like Brian Sims' comment. Walt Simonson to Archie Goodwin. Let's see what happens when we drop acid and try to do a cover. Drugs are bad, kids.
Well, Randy, why do you think they didn't put Leia on this cover?
Well, I think there's some marketing going on here. If we're going to break it down, I think that it's no mistake that looks like the Punisher, because I think they're trying to grab some of their comic book fans to bring them over, as far as superheroes fans, and bring them over to Star Wars. And, when I remember when I was a kid, the toy racks, like everybody had a Princess Leia, but when you got together with your friends and the figures, nobody picked Princess Leia. It was always, you picked all the boy characters. And that might be a little sexist for us little kids and stuff, but that's just how it was. Boys played with boy toys, girls played with girls' toys, and that's none of our faults. That's society and a completely other different podcast. But with that said, I'm just saying, I think that this is targeting male boys that collect comic books and put, everything on it that would make them want to buy it and cross over to superheroes.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. But
That makes a lot of sense.
come on, would it have killed you to put Leia in there somewhere?
Right. Yeah, I know. It's like they subbed out Jaxxon for Leia here. Well, okay, so this is interesting that you said that, Randy, that they're trying to get other comic book people over, because James Rowan, he said, I remember when this came out. I saw this cover and thought two things. First was that Nick Fury was somehow coming to Star Wars. Second was how happy I was that Jaxxon was coming back.
Woohoo!
So there you go.
All right, and then let's wrap things up with Chickafant, who says, all the wonderful colors I get for only 35 cents.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a very nice swirl of colors forming the background.
I do agree with that.
All right, now let's move on to our initial thoughts. So, Randy, when you first read this issue, what did you think?
I really liked it. I thought it was, I liked how the story enters and introduces a new character. And it felt a little Star Trek-y at first, but then as soon as you get back to getting Jaxxon in there and Amaiza, you start feeling a little bit more, at least in the comic book Star Wars world. And I like the fact that they don't just abandon the story arc they started with Han Solo and basically the Magnificent Seven.
Right.
they don't just abandon all those characters, and they go back to them
Mm.
and incorporate them in this new story arc, which I think was smart. I think it was cool, really good. And so I like this issue.
Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was nice to see Jaxxon and Amaiza, although Amaiza hasn't really changed her outfit much. She decided to keep that same non-outfit, I suppose.
Bra and panties?
Yep,
Oh,
pretty
darn.
much.
Oh, I hate that too. Don't you, Randy?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. All right, the testosterone in here.
I don't know how that look didn't take off. Madonna tried to make it happen. Just didn't ever stick.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I bet she read these classic Marvel Star Wars comics and said, I can take this somewhere.
Her career really took off after these comic books came out. So you never know.
Yes. Okay, so the whole comic to me felt like it was kind of a preamble for a bigger story yet to come. You're introducing a new character, and I was a little bored at first, but as it got going, as we'll see, there's a twist at the end that I really liked, and I thought it tied everything together.
All right, well, for me, like I was saying earlier, I could just never relate with G.I. Joe and those war-torn comics. So this didn't have that great of an appeal to me. Even now, reading this, I found it very hard to get into until we started seeing other characters. Like Randy, I'm glad you pointed out that they call back to that Magnificent Seven story arc, because that helped me get into the comic. We saw Jaxxon and Amaiza, and I thought, okay, so Han and Chewie can't be that far behind. And unfortunately, they were extremely far behind because they never made the comics except for this one little flashback sequence.
So let's have no more of this, please.
Yeah, so I can't say this is a favorite of mine, especially since the overarching plot was a little confusing.
It was, you know what? I was confused at the beginning. Remember me reading it next to you and I'm going, wait, what is Valance thinking of? And what are we? And then all of a sudden we're on a Duba 3 with what is it, Jim?
Jim, yes.
Yeah.
The Starkiller kid.
Which is the kid with a droid, as well as Luke was
Right.
with a droid. So I was confused at the beginning.
Yeah, they should have added a couple of more lines just to let the reader know where they're going with this.
Right.
And I thought, is this sloppy or are they going somewhere? And, we'll find out as we go along. But because it was a little too confusing, it's like the movie Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise. Yeah, you get so confused by the middle of it, you just give up.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the end, you don't even care. But
Well, I think we got to have some context of when this came out. Okay, so this was 1978.
Yes.
Okay, so we're 2 years away from the Empire Strikes Back coming out. So they have already started writing the Empire Strikes Back at this point, and they probably already had an outline. So I was told that at one point they had told Marvel to stop making too many story arcs with the main characters because people were going to see the movie next, and if they have these stories going off in these weird tangents that they can't bring back to the Empire Strikes Back, because as we know, the Empire Strikes Back adaptation plays right into the storyline in the comic book. It's not a side miniseries; it's part of the comic book series. So I think that this was an attempt to create new characters for Star Wars that they could just throw out when the movie came out, but it'd be harder to do that with Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Okay. Well, shall we get into the story here?
yes, we shall. Now, we are introduced on page 1 to a brand new bad guy, the aforementioned Valance. And he and his band of bounty hunters are blasting their way through the Telos 4 medical station. So, Randy, tell us all about this splash page.
Well, you got the guys storming, like you said, the building there, and with the main guy Valance coming there with his big gun, and obviously everybody's following him. So there's a lot of storytelling going on in this first page here. A lot of action with blasters and explosions, and people going, "Oh my gosh, look at these crazy guys!" And there's a guy with a lemon head in the behind him, and that freaks me out. I don't know what's going on here. And, so it's to me, this is it. It's not like the most grabbing piece ever, but it's like, okay, so this guy looks pretty intense. He does look like Nick Fury now instead of so much like the Punisher. so it makes me want to say, what's up with this guy? And so you read it and you go, oh, he's a bounty hunter, which is a huge key word that gets everybody going, huh? Bounty hunter? Mercenary? And this is before Empire Strikes Back where they use bounty hunters, but there's still kind of cool words. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, scummy people. You want to find out about these people, you know?
Okay.
Now, explain to us about his armor. And Hector Rios Jr. had commented about the cover art that looks a little bit like Saw Gerrera.
It's true. Well, I have actually a lot of questions about the armor myself in the story as we go along. I'll bring a couple things up. But, you know, I think they're just going for something new and something different. But also, as we find out in the reveal, that it might actually be more than just arbitrary armor.
Okay. So we'll get to that very shortly. All right, now we see that this is a personal mission for Valance. He and his men are not looking for anyone. They are just there to destroy Valance's past. They shoot up the medical staff and a droid who has been watching, well, a lot of Charlie Brown, obviously, because before he's blown up, he says,
"Good grief."
Wow.
Yeah, I can see that coming back in our favorite non-line of dialogue. All right, now, Valance's character can be summed up in the narration. Valance experienced regret. There's no time to enjoy the shooting. So it's a little push-pull there. Wow. He wants to enjoy the slaughter of all these people, but unfortunately, don't get the time. At last, he finds the record room, and he and his men open fire, obliterating the computer holding all the files until it just vanishes.
Now, moving right along, the team begins to invade the sick bays, and who do they find?
Randy?
Don Juan Quixote.
That's right! He's from the first story arc, which is after the movie adaptation, the Magnificent Seven issues.
All right, now, Don Juan, well, he's not talking to anyone in particular, but we need some exposition here. So he sums up his backstory about fighting alongside Han, Chewie, Jaxxon, Amaiza, and the others with his lightsaber. But now, Valance realizes they have a new job with a very large bounty ahead of them. They must find Han Solo, the boy, and the droids. All right, so this is where a story hiccup comes in. Now, Randy, what do you make of this? Does Valance recognize the name Han Solo? And how does he know his name? And which boy is he actually after?
Well, I just assumed that most people know Han Solo for being a famous scoundrel, and if you're important in the galaxy in some way, or a pirate, then of some sort, mercenary, bounty hunter, then of course you know who Han Solo is. And the boy is, you can only assume they mean Luke Skywalker. Right.
But is he going back to thinking of Aduba 3 and maybe he heard the tales of Han Solo from Aduba 3? Because how would he have heard tales of Han Solo helping out the rebellion to destroy the Death Star? So there's a lot of confusion here.
Yeah, there's once we get to it, when we get to the whole recapping A New Hope page or splash page, that there's a lot of things that aren't making sense time-wise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, so there's some confusion here, which they'll kind of iron out as we go along.
Right.
Sort of.
Yeah. Now, Valance says, of all the leads, a man-sized, man-eating green rabbit should be the easiest to find. And find him they do. And now, Jaxxon is back.
Yay!
And we pick up as he is, once again, flirting with Amaiza.
Well, who else? I mean, what would you do with Amaiza besides flirt?
And he's trying to get her to do something. Not that clear, but I'm sure we all know where he's going with this flirtation. And she leaves to refuel her ship when suddenly an electro net is dropped on Jaxxon.
Uh-oh.
Now,
Hey, what in the holy hutch? Says Jaxxon.
where's he going? You know what? Hutch. Okay, I just got that. Like a rabbit hutch?
Yeah.
Okay. At first, I didn't know where he was going to go with that, but you know what? Okay, that makes sense.
See, that's new to me. I don't know what a rabbit hutch is.
That's where bunnies live, like
Yeah.
a dog house.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like their little hutch. It's what you call it. Like, it's their little home.
Yeah, and
I
us.
didn't know that. Well,
us-
you guys have rabbits, so you would know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You would think I would have caught on to that, but. All right, but next we see Jaxxon hanging upside down and says, I'd ask what's up, guys, but it feels like I am.
Oh.
Oh, Jaxxon never short on the jokes. And Valance.
See, I like your voice on that. You're going more for a Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I hear more of like remember that rabbit from the Easter egg commercials, like Easter egg dice. Was it Dudley, the bunny? Remember those commercials for dying Easter eggs, the set that you can buy?
Hey, Dudley Rabbit here. Easter's almost here, so hurry up with those eggs.
Oh my.
Well,
So you did a Bugs Bunny. I was like, I'd ask what's up, guys, but feels like I am.
well, I can see Jaxxon being that smart aleck like Bugs. That's why the voice came up.
Well, read, hey, what in the holy hutch in that voice? Let's see if it works.
Hey, what in the holy hutch?
Hey, what in the holy hutch?
You guys like sound the same. So I don't think Amaiza would be drawn to that voice, Randy, that you're doing. I think it would just annoy her too much, so she'd leave Jaxxon behind. So I think he sounds more like, hey, what in the holy hutch?
You know what? Let's ask the Skywalkers. When you hear Jaxxon in these comics, what voice do you hear in your head? Tweet at us at SkywalkingPod.
Maybe make a video.
All right, now to continue, Valance's henchman, known as Fudd, asks him to name the planet where he served with Han, Solo, the boy, and the droids. And still, all along, we're thinking he's talking about Luke. They begin torturing Jaxxon with a pain inducer on his ears, and he says, yeah, blowing out your retros. Randy, what's your take on that?
Blow out your retros.
Suddenly he's Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just
this
trying out
happen?
voices for Jaxxon. That's
All right. Now, suddenly a blaster bolt shreds through Daffy, another torturer.
Uh-oh.
How can you take a torturer named Daffy seriously? And
Sure.
Sarah, who is it?
It's Amaiza!
And she is amazing.
She quickly makes short work of the rest of the gang, except for the one who gets away. But that is a cool, on page 284 of the omnibus, you have Amaiza.
She's being amazing.
Yes, being amazing and shooting up the gang with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9 simultaneous shots.
Laser bolts.
Yeah,
Right.
that was fun.
Randy, what do you see in this next panel as Amaiza walks over to Jaxxon?
I see B. Arthur about ready to do a Spider-Man kiss.
Ah!
Wow.
Oh my god!
You know what? You're right. There's Akmina.
Yep.
And Amaiza looks like Akmina from the holiday special.
Just one more dance, friend. Just one more chance, friend.
Wow.
And she's walking over to Jaxxon, who's upside down, and you get that classic Spider-Man, not Mary Jane, Kirsten Dunst.
Yes.
Kirsten Dunst.
And Spider-Man, she kisses him upside down.
Wow.
So, once again, pop culture in the current day is taking from the classic Marvel Star Wars comics.
There you go. And who hasn't dreamed of kissing B. Arthur upside down?
That would be me. I haven't done that.
Moving right along. Now, Jaxxon and Amaiza blast off in Jackson's ship called... Randy, go ahead and say it.
It is called the Rabbit's Foot.
What else would it be called? And they both head for Aduba 3. And for those fans of Shadows of the Empire, the ship looks amazingly like Dash Rendar's Outrider.
But I have an issue with this name of Jackson's ship, Rabbit's Foot.
But this is Amaiza's ship.
Well, is it?
Yeah, because he explains that she's a really good gambler, and she did well enough to get her ship repaired.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Now, in this next panel, they are already landing and meet up with the boy from the Magnificent Seven story arc, Jim, the Star Killer Kid.
Jimm.
And
Jim.
And he's with Mary, the daughter of the shaman who had a thing for Han Solo. So I guess she couldn't get Han, so she went with the Star Killer Kid.
Oh, yeah.
And if you recall, at the end of issue 10, Jim stuck around, like in those old westerns. You have that one guy who's like, no, kind of stick around here because he's got his eye on the town beauty.
All right.
As we see, they've progressed in their relationship because Jim and Mary are now married and expecting their first little star killer.
Valance and his crew, well, they're not far behind Jaxxon and Amaiza because, Amaiza said, "Oh, Aduba 3," and Jaxxon was like, "No, don't tell him the name of the planet." So now we begin to get some backstory as Valance's mind drifts to when he was a stormtrooper officer.
Wait a minute, what?
I know.
Are we seeing shades of The Force Awakens?
Ooh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, except for going to the good side, he went to the
right.
What is it? Bounty hunter side.
But we're seeing a stormtrooper who's no longer part of the Empire without his helmet.
That's true because his career with the Empire ended during a battle when an X-wing torpedo blasted his squad. Now, he survived, but by a margin so narrow that he was left at the Telos 4 medical station to die. So now things are starting to come together in this episode here.
Okay, at this point, let's stop for a second.
Okay.
Let's recognize the fact that he's talking about referring to the Death Star, right? As far as the barely exploded. Okay.
No, well,
so
you know what? You would think so, but from the artwork here, we're not seeing the Death Star. We're just seeing a random attack.
Well, it says the was ended by a rebel serial torpedo.
Right. So you would think the Death Star, but I don't think this is the Death Star because you have a bunch of stormtroopers with this big giant cannon.
I never got the Death Star in this.
The big cannon's on a set of wheels. So I'm thinking they're on some kind of planet and it's another rebel attack.
Yeah.
Okay, but further on he's talking about how it's the boy who basically ended his career, which they don't really make clear. Like, okay, well, why did you have to leave the Empire? You escaped alive. Doesn't mean you have to not be in the Empire anymore. But he basically goes on saying it's the boy and that he's after because he's the one who made him go that direction or whatever, not be able to be the Empire, never see himself as the Empire, glory of the Empire, something like that. So my question is, the timeline is that these, if I understand it correctly, or you guys saying that it's not the Death Star?
What you're saying makes sense, and that's one of the reasons why he wants to exact revenge on the boy, but how does he know who the boy is? And I don't see this being the Death Star, because once again, we have the stormtroopers on this big giant cannon, and it looks like they're on a planet's surface.
Yeah. I'm just saying time-wise, if it's the Death Star that he's talking about, then that's from the time of this story and from the end of Star Wars is not much time.
No.
So that is very little time for him to create this huge army of bounty hunters and everything, and have this respect for him as a captain and a leader and stuff.
Right. Well, okay, so what it looks like is Valance is remembering this battle where he was horribly maimed, but then at some point he got a hold of this tape that was an illegal dupe of an Imperial transmission, and the tape is what shows him the incredible escape of Senator and Princess Leia Organa from the Death Star, and also it shows, I guess, the boy who fired on the Death Star as well, and it was the boy who fired Valance's fury, for his part was done with the cooperation, indeed, the friendship of two droids. Oh, so it's the tape of them on the Death Star, and then they escape the Death Star, so it's not the Death Star blowing up.
It doesn't sound like the artists and the writers were on the same page, no pun intended. Because nothing here is adding up. Right.
That's why I was confused by this issue, because it's confusing.
And I like how there's somehow a movie reel of everything that happened.
Exactly. I find that amusing.
I guess an Imperial news story, and they piece together like a montage. And by the way, I love Darth Vader's bell bottoms.
All right, you know what? Before we get into that, because I want to cover that in just a few minutes. Now, Valance says he can never stand with pride in the Empire's ranks because he lived through the battle.
Because he was so horribly maimed. So maybe it's kind of like, people who have a problem with their feet or their ear or their eyes and they couldn't go to war. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay,
you need to be on point, like how Air Force people, they need to have perfect eyesight. 2020.
But you could have your whole body burned and missing your arms and legs and put in armor and lead an empire.
Well,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Well,
if you have the Force, yes.
Yeah, I think the Emperor at that point was looking for a Vader replacement. But now in the narration, you would think that the word stand would be bolded and highlighted because he could never stand because of his badly figured legs.
He could never again stand with pride in the Empire's ranks.
So once again, another story hiccup. We don't really see what's going on here.
Right.
All right, so he plays this Imperial transmission tape for his crew so they know exactly what their mission is when they get to Aduba 3. Mm-hmm. I smell a cliffhanger here, and a good time to break into a commercial break. So, Randy, what ad did you pick out from this comic from back in 1978?
Well, this issue, first I want to say, is chock full of advertisements. When I first picked up the book to look at it again, I'm like, wow, this thing's really thick. This must be a long story. Nope, just got a lot of advertising, which tells me that people had finally caught on that there's money to be made around Star Wars. So in 1978, you got to remember, this is also when Star Wars toys finally came out, right? They didn't come out in 1977. They came out in 1978 because of the early bird thing, right?
Right.
Everybody started getting them in the mail. When did those actually start coming out? Do you guys remember?
They came out in February through June.
Okay, February through June. So,
and this is June, where this comic came out.
Yeah, so basically it's precedented that there is big money in Star Wars. So I think that is a big reason why there are so many ads in this comic book, more than any other comic book that I picked up in the 70s. But the ad that I picked was Everybody Loves Icy.
There's a new taste spreading out right across the nation. The frozenated, carbonated, icy drink sensation. You can sip it, you can spoon it, it's the icy surprise. There's Coca-Cola, orange, raspberry, or lime. Everybody, 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 everybody loves icy.
Okay.
We have the Icy Bear there, and with the logo that everybody knows. And I guess I picked it because everybody does love icy.
Everybody loves icy.
Well, now, what is an icy?
Now, you don't know what an icy is?
Well, for those, I'm speaking for the audience who does not know what an icy is and cannot see the ad themselves.
Okay, well, if you don't know what an icy is, I don't know what Rocky been under, but this is it's a red like slush drink that you could get like it's like a Slurpee at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And you can usually, I remember getting them at Kmart when Kmart was like the place to go, but you can get them at different places, and now you can get them in movie theaters and stuff. Been around a long time, but it's usually like a cherry or cola flavored icy, it's like Slurpee type of thing.
Okay.
And when you got the icy cup, it came with these little cutout coupons with the little icy bear on it, and supposedly you could trade them in. Now, I never knew what you traded them in. I used to collect these things. I used to cut my cups up and keep. These are worth something somewhere, and I never found what the hell I was supposed to use these things for. Because at Kmart, they didn't have anything. Use your coupons here. There was nothing. And, of course, at this age, it's 1978. I'm 4 years old, so I can't read. So I don't know what this means here, what this ad is. But now, finally, if I had just saved all my coupons, I could mail this coupon in now.
Yep.
Get some of these great items.
Is there an expiration date over here? I don't see
know.
one.
Let's see.
Oh, no. Availability and price is guaranteed until June 30th, 1979.
Oh, darn it. Just missed that deadline.
But may change without notice thereafter.
Oh, boy.
So it looks like with your cutout things, you could, but it does cost money with it, too. So you have to get the binder, a Icy Bear plush doll,
a watch. But these are like terrible renderings here. It's literally just crap drawings of these items, so you don't really know what they are supposed to look like because they're not pictures.
See, I think I glossed over this ad when I was a kid because at John's, the store we would go to for comics, we had slushes where they had a cute little white dog.
Oh.
So I saw this and said, "Shh, look at this knockoff bear. What's he trying to prove?"
Yeah. Now, I realize this is not a super exciting or super funny thing, but luckily, Richard does read the comics a little bit closer than I do, and he found a really interesting comic that is hilarious.
An ad?
Ooh.
An ad. And that is for Be a skilled locksmith.
Put the brakes on right here. Now, in this ad, in this kid's comic book, and he has a picture of a guy who looks like Ward Cleaver. And
they go like,
It says right next to him, what if I'm laid off? Will automation take my job?
Ooh.
Am I too old to change jobs? Can I learn a new skill? Will my job ever pay me more? Be a skilled locksmith. What is this doing in a kid's comic book?
Yes.
What kid is thinking, wait a minute, will I get laid off? Laid off from what? School? Exciting.
Be a skilled locksmith and solve all your future problems. And this font, like there's a whole bunch of words here that are like in about 0.7 font. So it's really, really small. Like, no kid is ever going to read this.
What company just threw away their money? Because I can guarantee you, until right now, no one ever looked at this ad.
I don't know, man. That's why there's so many 40-something-year-old people running around that are locksmiths.
Wow. Now that actually keys can be made automatically at Lowe's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Boy, is this ad outdated.
You're like, damn it, automation finally took my job.
Automation took the locksmith job.
Now what am I going to do? I guess I can make keys at Home Depot, but no one wants keys anymore.
Nope.
Well, what I think is really great is what you're saying. Like, what kid is going to look at this is that the contrast. They bought a half-page ad. So that wasn't cheap, right?
Mm-mm.
So around it, you have an illustrated ad for, like trick joke things, like the glowing skull or like
the hand buzzer,
stinky gum, yeah. And then you have on the other side, you have a half page for strong arms, get strong, which we see in comics a lot.
Very nice.
All right, well, you know what? Those are some good choices for ads.
Still waiting for those sea monkeys.
Oh, they're coming.
Sea Monkeys, real live fun. Each set sold separately comes with everything you see here. We're alive!
Now, we come back to the secret Imperial transmission tape that Valance had gotten off a rebel spy. Ooh, wait a minute. He got this off a rebel spy, so you know it wasn't me. But who could he have gotten this off of? I think that was just their way of connecting this whole thing, and how would he have gotten these transmission tapes?
Right.
Okay. Now, this is the retelling, like we were saying earlier, of Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, and the droids and their adventures on the Death Star in Star Wars. Now, Randy, tell us all about this big splash page we're seeing.
Well, we got a really exciting splash page of you got Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca all firing off in different directions. So that's exciting, big red lasers, and you got the Death Star back there upside down. But I guess in space there's no upside down, so that's fine. You got stormtroopers back there. You got Luke here, which I think purposely is, like you said, he is actually the focus of Prince Valance, Valance. Sorry, Valance. I'm never gonna get that right. Now I got Prince Valance on the brain, but so he's the main focus here, and then you have Darth Vader, who's wearing bell bottoms now for some reason, and then you have C-3PO with a half shirt. And R2-D2. So you get some of the styles of the 70s creeping into Star Wars here with the artwork.
Well,
Indeed.
I'm so glad that Princess Leia at least made this splash page.
This would make a great cover, too, only it wouldn't depict what's in this comic.
Would really misrepresent the comic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in his inner dialogue, Valance breezes past the incredible escape from the Death Star, the fact that Han Solo has a price on his head, Vader was soundly tested by a strange, unknown old man, and gets to the boy who fired Valance's fury. So now we're getting somewhere. We're connecting those dots as to the boy he's been referring to.
Right, so what Valance is thinking about is Luke and the droids.
Right, but all along, like we were saying, I just assumed he meant Jim, since that's where he was going with it to Aduba 3.
Right.
And that this boy's part was done with the cooperation and friendship of 2 droids. He hates droids.
Yes, he hates mechanicals, which, okay, so let's dive back into this on page 280, which was earlier in the comic. The junk, it's saying that Valance, all his life, he's hated mechanicals, servile circuitry competing with men. And I don't understand this because in this galaxy, and it also says that this is a common attitude in the galaxy.
Yeah.
But I don't understand that because if you look at all of Star Wars, droids are there to help people, and that's what they've done. Like, I've never seen this attitude.
Yeah, Han Solo doesn't like him.
Well, this has gone back to the bartender in Star Wars not wanting droids because the droids had served in the Clone Wars as soldiers. And that's where the attitude where people don't like droids like Han Solo, like people of that age, they don't like the droids because they're flashing back to the tyranny of the Clone Wars days.
Okay, see, I'm thinking of the prequels and how droids are all over the place and how it's cool. And I'm thinking of Rogue One where, the Empire uses droids too. So, but I guess in 1978, all those hadn't been invented yet.
I think the more common folk that was really affected by the Clone Wars and their planets were taken over, their lives were taken over because the Separatists invaded and destroyed everything they had built due to the fact that the battle droids in fleets of billions would just mow down environments.
Okay.
So now I am thinking that because Luke has these two droids as companions, that's what's firing Valance's fury.
Right.
Knowing that he hates droids, and how could this human lower himself to have such companions as these droids? They're not servants, they're more companions. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's why it's really thin. It's a thin plot line, but maybe he loves droids and Valance doesn't like that.
Right.
Kind of symbolic to the 70s.
See, I think it has more to do with the connection of Luke blowing up the Death Star and it having something to do with him getting blown up.
Right.
Because there's millions of people all over the galaxy that have droids.
That would make more sense.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because Luke blew up the Death Star, there's a huge bounty on his head. Valance is a bounty hunter.
But how does anyone know that Luke Skywalker was the one who fired the proton torpedo into the Death Star?
They hacked into the Rebels' transmissions? I don't know.
Yeah, we need to see evidence of that.
I know.
Because it's here in this well-edited documentary that the Empire put up.
Yeah, there you go.
Not at all a propaganda issue. All right, now Valance's ship begins their descent on Aduba 3 when suddenly they are attacked by Jaxxon and Amaiza in the Rabbit's Foot. Mm-hmm. And after a brief firefight, the Rabbit's Foot has suffered enough damage that it plunges back down to Aduba 3. Valance follows the Rabbit's Foot as it lands on the planet's surface. The crew carefully approaches the ship, hoping the boy is still alive. I'm not sure what boy they're looking for at this point.
I know. They think he's in the ship, apparently.
I don't know why.
Yeah, but they are attacked by Jaxxon and Amaiza.
Now, Jim, who is hiding in this tall grass, he fires his blaster in the air, which echoes loudly across the plains.
Okay, I'm sorry, but Jim seems to have taken some interest in Captain Jack's clothing. What?
With his unitard?
He decided to go with really short shorts.
Maybe it
looks like he's going, I have the power.
Yes, he does.
And now Valance's men suddenly feel the ground quaking. Jim's blaster fire had set off a stampede of banthas, which tramples the hunters. And now there are no survivors except for Valance.
How cool is this panel with the banthas on it?
Oh,
it's cool.
The bantha herd?
Yes.
The bantha stampede?
Yeah, it's so cute.
And these banthas are huge.
Yeah, one bantha has his mouth wide open, which we've never seen before. He's got a giant tongue. He's going, Rah!
These are like Skull Island-sized banthas.
Yeah. Now, as Valance tries to escape, he is stopped by Jim. Now, this is where things get really good. And Jaxxon asks him why he's after Jim. Valance puts it together that Jim, is not the same boy on the Death Star transmission tapes.
Nope.
Oh, no. And he did this all for nothing. Now, we still don't know why he's after Luke, but we're piecing it together that it has to do with the Death Star and why he's been outed from the Empire. Now, Valance drops his blaster, but a powerful blast suddenly shoots from his hand, just missing Jaxxon and his friends.
Yes, and this acts as a deterrent, so they can't see what he's doing, so Valance runs to his ship and blasts off.
And as he sails away, he begins clawing at his face. Valance is clawing at his face, kind of like the scene in Poltergeist where the guy is ripping his flesh right off.
Makes me think of, Mission Impossible as well, where they rip the faces off, his face underneath.
Now, Randy, why is he ripping off his face?
Because we have the big reveal where he is part droid himself.
Oh.
He's a cyborg.
Wait a minute. Is that why he hates droids? Is it all coming together now?
I think so. He's half man, half machine. Uh-oh.
Oh, this is not good. Now, we understand that while he was at the medical station on Telos 4, half his body was replaced by cybernetic parts, and being a cyborg only makes him more determined that the hunt shall go on.
You know what? I just noticed something on this last panel of this issue. For being a cyborg only makes Vance more determined. They spelled his name wrong. They said Vance.
Oh. Typo.
Wow. Okay. You know, if it was Vance, it would make it a lot easier to say his name.
Very much so. Very much so. But now, Randy, why is he more determined that the hunt shall go on?
That's a mystery. I don't know. We'll see. That maybe...
Yeah, I just think he wants the bounty. He knows there's a huge bounty on Luke Skywalker.
Well, this is more personal.
I know it's more personal, but it starts with the money, and then it gets more personal because Luke also used the droids. So he's a friend of the droids, and he wants money. So it's money and droids.
I think we can piece it all together, and with no help from the comic book, that it is Luke that he's always been after, because it was Luke that destroyed the Death Star, and it was Luke who destroyed his ranks in the Empire.
So he's part of the attrition
Yes.
of the Death Star blowing up.
Yeah.
And now, which I think is really good writing as far as a comic book goes, because there really would be a lot of attrition, and there would be some things that Luke would have to answer for that they don't ever talk about in the movie.
What does attrition mean?
It's like if
consequences.
It's like if you
Consequences.
it's like if you hit somebody with your car.
Uh-huh.
Like you were mad and you rammed somebody with your car. I mean, I'm not saying you would, but
Yeah. Thought about it.
and
not,
like,
not today.
You might get revenge on whoever, but there might be their sister or brother in the car, and they broke their arm because you hit them. So them breaking their arm is the attrition of your action.
Oh,
It wasn't meant for them,
Okay.
but they still suffered some of the consequences.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
all of the people on the Death Star that got killed. So Luke's a mass murderer, basically. He
Eh.
killed all those people, millions of people on the Death Star, and all of them are considered some of the attrition.
Okay.
Now, I could see that if this fight on Aduba 3, something had happened and half his face had melted off, and having no more medical station on Telos 4 because he destroyed it, he's left with a half of a cyborg face, and it's more apparent now because whenever he looks in the mirror, he sees what had happened to him, and when everyone else looks at him, they're gonna look at him and see part droid, which he hates. But it was the fact that he's peeling off his own face that we reveal that he's part cyborg. So I really don't see a bigger motivation for him wanting to destroy Luke, because it seems like at this point he kind of brought this on himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm leaving it there, and we fade out to the next issue titled "The Empire Strikes."
What? Yet again, we see comics coming back in movies.
Right. All right, so I'm going to start first with my overall thoughts, and that I like this as a first draft, but they have so much to fill in, because as we saw on every other page, there was these story hiccups. In the end, him peeling off his own face, he's the one who's revealing his inner cyborg. And I know for the audience, we have to know why he hates these droids, and it leaves us with a nice cliffhanger, but there just isn't enough there to really leave us with an understanding of this character. Randy?
Well, I think it's enough. I think it is a good cliffhanger because I think there's something deeper going on with this guy, and that makes you want to find out. So in terms of how comic books are written and leaving cliffhangers and wanting to know what happens next, I think they do a good job here. Like oh, he hates droids, yet he's half a droid? What's going on here?
That is good, but on every other page, we had to stop and fill in the blanks because the writers didn't.
Right. Well, that's what I'm... Yeah, my takeaway is this episode was a bit confusing. I keep on saying episode. This issue was a bit confusing. However, those last two panels where he tears off his face and he's part cyborg, it begins to tie everything together. So, to me, that actually tied up this issue more.
Right, but if it had been Amaiza and Jaxxon and Jim and their firefight that melted half his face, I could see him being much more angry that the cyborg was revealed. So
Okay.
I'm hoping the next issue where we pick up after this cliffhanger fills in more of the gaps and we get more of a solid story.
Okay.
And now with that, Randy, what was your favorite line of dialogue from this issue?
My favorite line of dialogue is from near the beginning, where we find Jaxxon and Amaiza again, and they are parting ways. And as Jaxxon is leaving, he's thinking, "Cute lady, even if she doesn't have fur." I don't know. There's
Randy, watch it. Randy.
She does have fur on her shoulder pads.
But I just thought, that was kind of cute dialogue.
Okay.
All right. Sarah.
Nice. For me, I really like Jaxxon when, he's that net is being thrown over him and he says, "Hey, what the holy hutch?" And also his response to them trying to get information out of him, "Blow it out your retros." Those are just fun comments. So I think Jaxxon is my favorite character in terms of his dialogue.
Blow out your retros. What does that mean?
I don't know.
But it sounds fun.
It
You know
does.
what? All right. I can see that as a line. I'm going to start hashtagging.
Oh.
I like that. As a
If you
matter of
don't
fact,
if you don't like something someone says on Twitter,
Yeah.
hashtag blow it out your retros.
I love that. I expect to see a lot of that.
Search
Skywalkers.
that as a GIF.
All right. For me, my favorite line of dialogue comes on page 280 of the omnibus when Valance is shooting up this droid and Valance says, "Shut up, junk." He calls him junk. Not even something clever like goldenrod or professor. Just junk. I laughed out loud at that line. "Shut up, junk."
Nice.
Nice.
Doesn't
All
roll
right.
off the tongue very good either.
No. Well, I do have an honorable mention for favorite phrase or line of dialogue because in this issue in particular, there was a lot of awesome, what are these called when it's words that are describing
Sound effects.
sound effects?
Narration.
Yeah, there's a lot of awesome sound effect words. Like you get fadak and virum and zadak and wum and stum. Like they're like someone was having fun with these words, and I love them. So
And they've been watching a lot of Batman TV series.
yes, that too. Yow! There's one like that. There's almost hey, you know what that is? That's a Wilhelm scream, only written out.
Oh.
Yow!
That's coming from Jaxxon.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Wow.
All right, Randy, what was your favorite panel from this issue?
Well, there were several good ones. I almost did the Banthas, but I really came back to. I really liked the very last panel of the reveal of his face.
Okay.
It being a robot, there's just something very creepy and haunting and kind of lonely about the whole thing. Yeah, I just think it's nice, kind of a horror comic look to it, being put into Star Wars, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's very Terminator-esque.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Sarah, what was your favorite panel?
So my favorite panel was actually on page 284 of the omnibus, the middle panel where Amaiza is taking matters into her own hands and shooting up the gang who is trying to get info out of Jaxxon. And I like it because it's got lots of movement. She's got those 9 shots that are coming from her body, and it's just taking control. And then I like even the narration on this where she's like, "I said don't." And the narration says, "And the one-time member of the infamous Black Hole Gang, is perfectly able to back up all she says. So, women power. Woo!
And she's shooting all these guys and just missing Jaxxon.
Yep. Yeah, just kind of like Malbus, when he's saving Chirrut.
By the way, do you think Amaiza is going to show up at any of these women marches?
Dressed like that? Gee,
No.
I hope not. That would be a shame.
Yes.
Or maybe she'll show up at the next Celebration convention. Cosplayers.
Well, she'd get a lot of attention then.
Yes. Wow.
Right. All right, now my favorite panel, oddly enough, has Amaiza and Spider Bunny. And that's the panel where Amaiza looks like Akmina from the holiday special and looks like she's about to plant a big kiss on our favorite green bunny rabbit. That to me just really rung out. There's better artistic panels in here, but I really liked that panel there. Now, Randy, what was your favorite non-Star Wars moment or line of dialogue?
Well, this would be at the end, and I almost picked it as my favorite dialogue, but I wanted to save it for most non-Star Wars thing, is when he has a revelation that this kid, Jim, which is hilarious, he's just Jim. Star Wars, everybody's got these crazy names. Not him, he's Jim. But is the next panel over when he starts having a revelation is that he has this moment of like, he's like the villain, and he's obviously like, you know, he's gruff and he's rough and he's like pissed off all the time. And yet when he realizes, you know, that he's not, he's after the wrong boy. And then suddenly he has this moment of reflection and being quite honest with himself. Mm-hmm. Saying, between my obsession and my crew's greed, we did this all for nothing. So he totally takes, you know, he owns it, that it was because of his greed and it's his fault, and he takes responsibility for his shortcomings, that it was for nothing, it was all his fault. Now that's not Star Wars to me, because most of the villains blame somebody else at every turn. It's always somebody else's fault. And here's the main heavy bad guy, and he's like, but you know what, this is really my fault, my own fault. I only have myself to blame. You know, I really can't be upset at anybody about this. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a different direction. I can see that.
I'm gonna blast you anyways.
Right. Now, for me, the most non-Star Wars line of dialogue comes when that silver droid in the beginning says, "Good grief." Of all the things to say, that
when you're being shot up?
Yeah, and why use something as well known as "good grief"? I don't know what their reasoning was there, because when you see that, you're thinking, is Charlie Brown inside of this droid, and is Charlie Brown now dead?
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, if the droid had a yellow body with a black squiggly line on his torso, I would have thought, okay, they're going for something there, and I can appreciate that. At least have a callback.
He should have said, "Shut up, blockhead."
Oh,
that would even sounds better too. See
the places they could have gone with this.
And then when the droid gets shot, he could have gone, "Ah!"
Right. And maybe they'll have a spin-off comic where this droid continuously tries to kick a football, but it never happens. See, they put this droid back together, and you can go places with this. Now, Sarah, what would you nominate as a non-Star Wars moment or line of dialogue?
Okay, so my most weirdest line of dialogue, I guess, as I'm going to go with that, is when Valance, he discovers he's after the wrong boy, and he says, "I'm after the wrong boy. Between my obsession and the crew's greed, we did this all for nothing." Now, when you're upset and you're running away from people, who stops to say all that?
But doesn't that sound Charlie Brown-esque too?
It does. I don't know. So I just think that was so silly of him. I mean, obviously it's for us readers to like put everything in perspective, but I just thought it was so silly that he stopped and said all that.
Well, Sarah, great minds think alike, since we both have the same one.
Yes.
It all ties back to Charlie Brown. All right, let's wrap it up here and thank everyone for joining us once again on Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, where we just went through issue number 16, The Hunter. So we'll see everyone back for issue 17, titled The Empire Strikes. Ooh. Will they stick with that title? Stay tuned and find out. And of course, we want to thank Rob Dellinger, the John Williams of podcasting, for writing our awesome theme song. Now, for those of you in the San Francisco area, Rob and his band, the Alpha Rhythm Kings, will be appearing at the Woodchoppers Ball in San Francisco on January 30th. And for more of Rob's tour dates with the Alpha Rhythm Kings, please refer to his website, robdellinger.com. That's R-O-B. There you have your Rob. D-E-H. Linger, there's your Dellinger.com.
All right, and you can find us on social media. Randy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Randy Martinez 40. That's 40. You can also go to my website, randymartinez.art. But I also want to tell everybody about something that's going on.
Oh, please.
Of course, everybody knows that Valentine's Day is coming up quickly here. And I'm talking mostly to, this is for everybody, but to the guys, don't screw this up. Take it from me. It's never too early to start thinking about Valentine's Day gifts. Get this done. Trust me. Just trust me. I don't want to go into it. But anyways, I'm a romantic, and I am having a special right now. So basically, couples portraits, I'm doing 50% off of what I normally charge. So it's a whole 50%. So if you get a piece that's normally $300, it's only going to be $150, and so on and so on. But I have pieces that are $100, $200, and if you want to spend $5,000, it'll only be $2,500.
Wow. So what if you want the Kylo Ren and the Rey portraits that you've done separately, but you ship Reylo?
Oh.
What do you mean ship it?
Like relationship, like you think they should be in a relationship. You're a Reylo person.
See, I don't know what that is. That's like a total millennial thing.
Well, it's a girls podcasting thing, at least.
What does that even mean?
We talk about that.
That means when you get couples together.
It's shipping. It's called shipping.
So relationshipping.
When you see people on screen that aren't together, but you want them to be, it's called shipping.
Anyways.
Well, what if a listener wants the Spider Bunny panel of them and their special sweetie?
Absolutely, you can do that. So that's the thing. I want to make sure it's clear that you can initially put it out there so people that want to get couples portraits. So like if Richard and Sarah wanted to get a portrait of them as like an Ewok and a Porg or whatever you want to do in the piece for romantic, the two of you in there, it would be half price. Or if you don't have a Valentine, or you don't want to get something for your Valentine or anybody, you can also just get two characters that you like. So if you wanted Kylo Ren and Rey in a piece together, I'll do that for you, half off. So basically any piece with two characters or two animals or whatever in it, not necessarily romantically, is half off.
Okay.
That's the deal off of my normal prices. So if you want Megatron and My Little Pony, that's two characters on one piece. That counts as half off.
And when is the deadline for this discount?
February 14th makes it easy. So, and that basically means that that if you're not getting it as a Valentine's gift, you can still take advantage of the sale. And but if you do want to take advantage of it for a Valentine's Day gift, you got to get your orders in as soon as possible for me to be able to get the artwork done and ship it to you in the proper use of the word. Ship it to you at your home so that you can have it, get it nice framed for your Valentine.
I like that. Bringing it back around.
Very nice.
All right, Skywalkers. Well, if you want to talk to us on social media, we are always open for business. We are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Or you could join our Facebook group where we do post these covers of these Marvel issues and ask for your input. And to do that, you can search Facebook for Skywalking Through Neverland group. You can request to join, and then you can answer those two questions that pop up. You could say FORP, and we'll know that you're one of us. All right.
All right. Now, for classic Marvel Star Wars comics, this is Richard.
This is Sarah.
And this is Wato the Joke Dealer. No, this is Randy Martinez.
All saying,
blow it out your retros. Or
Zadak.
or Forp, or hashtag make who jibs canon.
Or
Goodbye.
Thank you, Fudd.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking.
there's something about Icy and Slurpees that are like they're more like ice mush.
They're blended more.
Good.
Yeah. Well, and they're also good when you put vodka in it. Did you try that at 4 years old?
Yeah, not at 4. Not at 4. Yeah, and then these crazy questions like his, and then over on the right, upper right hand side of that ad, there's like look like prison pictures of these guys, but they're the testimonials of how great this thing is. But these two guys look like, one looks like John Wayne Gacy, the other guy just looks like some inmate. Like,
yeah, and this font is like a 0.2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy,
just take it from these inmates at San Quentin. Yeah, they learned locksmith for a completely different reason.
Wow. All right, let's hold on right here because I think Sarah's got to use the little girl's room.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll be back.
Okay.
Make sure you turn your mic off.
She didn't hear you, so we're going to hear everything. Now, Randy, what do you think that three-eyed hunter's name is, and what do you think he sounds like?
Peahead.
Oh.
He looks like he got peas for a head.
Taser face. It's Taser face.
Taser face, really? Taser face? And if you had to pick a voice for this guy, what would it be?
They're getting away.
That's kind of...
he does a lot of that.
And why? I'm so confused by this plot line.
Who do you like in the game this weekend?
Oh. Well, I'm sure they used the ship as a cover, so they must have.
All right.
Well, they spot them. They said they're headed for that tall grass.
Oh.
It says, Captain, they've abandoned, or is it they go,
Captain, they've abandoned their ship for the tall grass.
Well, at that point, they're already over in the tall grass. But now we're splitting hairs.
He is a bunny. They are fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're just splitting hairs.
It's true. Well,
Anyone?
So where does it derive from?
Relationships.
That's dumb. Because because I think like slang from when we were growing up, right? Like, so like bad, like, oh, that's bad. That's like bad is good, right? Well, there's irony in that. You understand the irony. It's like the ship thing doesn't make any sense.
All right.
Well, we did this under 2 hours this time. That's exciting.